So I'm super excited, and let me tell you why. I've been literally waiting for strings for my bass guitar. I've ordered them from Sweetwater, and it's not their fault. For literally 3 months, I ordered a set of, and I'll explain this as kind of like my little string journey here. A set of the Ernie Ball Super Slinky, and I ordered them specifically because they are the gauge that I prefer. I love this gauge of strings, and it's an interesting little journey how I came upon this gauge because I usually use a heavier gauge. Um, I made the mistake one time of changing to a very light gauge before a big show. I was in about in front of about almost 4,000 members, 4,000 fans, if you want to call them that. Um, and I changed to a super light gauge strings and just destroyed a bass solo because the strings were too light and I just muscled the strings because I don't know if any of you have gotten in front of a large crowd before, but your energy level just explodes and things just get really hype. So I destroyed a bass solo because of putting on a lighter gauge strings, but that's another story. The story about my string journey is I've been using, as were recommended to me from Tim Srirachi from the band YYNOT. I'll put a link to their YouTube channel in my description because they're really awesome. They're a great Rush cover band, and they also do original songs too, and they're amazing. So Tim Srirachi, and I just asked him like what strings he used because I really love the tone that he gets and how crisp his sound is, and he recommended. Let me get him. The D'Addario nickel wound. And the reason why I like these strings is because they're super bright, super crisp, and they're a little heavier gauge. The gauges here were 45, 65, 80, 100, and 130. And I was going with a heavier gauge on the B string, thinking it would give me a little more sustain and kind of be able to handle my aggressive style a little bit better. But this is where the but comes in. So, little funny thing I wrote on this. These are used strings. I don't know if you can see this. It says dead inside. So the music director of my church had a set of Ernie Ball Super Slinkies, and I don't have a package with me because I only had one set because this is what the music director gave me of these Ernie Ball Super Slinky strings. But I believe they're 40, 40, 60, 80, 100, and 125, I believe. And he didn't have any use for them. He knew I played 5-string bass, so he asked me if I wanted to have them. Was very reluctant because the gauges were light, and due to my bad experience in front of a large crowd, I didn't really want the lighter gauge strings. So, but I mean, they're free strings, so I was like, sure, I'll take them just in case, I break one or whatever and need one in a pinch. It's always good to have one. So, took these strings and I just let them sit in my little travel backpack for, I would think, maybe about 4 years. I just let them sit there and never used them. My strings on my bass were getting pretty dead. And at that time, I just couldn't afford a set of strings there. So I was like, you know what? I've got these set of Ernie Balls. So why not put them on? Put these strings on, and they ended up being amazing. I was just floored at how good these strings felt. I mean, the gauges were perfect for my style of playing. I tend to be kind of aggressive when I play, and I do have like a very kind of like Stanley Clarkish attack on my strings. And I was surprised at how well these strings handled my attack. So, practiced with them, played with them. I've been using them for a while. I mean, I tend to use strings until they go completely dead and start sounding like a flat wound string. And well, came to the time where I needed to change my strings. As a matter of fact, I've got them on this bass right now. So what I'm going to do to celebrate getting my new strings, which I couldn't get the Ernie balls, it took roughly about 2 months because these strings were back ordered. This is not Sweetwater's fault at all, but Ernie Ball apparently and other string manufacturers like D'Addario are having trouble getting the raw materials for their strings, and they just can't put them out like they've been. And they're saying that's because of COVID-19. I don't know what that has to do with it and the raw materials, but apparently they're not able to manufacture strings as quickly as they can or used to. So it took about 2 months, and they just couldn't get them. They were like, look, we can't make any promises. We've talked to Ernie Ball. They said they can't get the raw materials and they can't give you any time frame of when you're going to get them. In the meantime, my bass strings are flat. I mean, they have almost no crispness to it, and I love a crisp tone on my bass. So I was like, okay, let me figure this out for a second. Went on the web, and I just put in the gauges of the strings that I use, or the Ernie Ball strings. And lo and behold, I found out that D'Addario does have a set of strings that are in that gauge, and it said available. So I called them up. Now the sad part is that the D'Addario strings are more expensive than the Ernie Ball. So one set of strings cost me almost what 2 sets of the Ernie Balls would have cost. So hopefully these will be better strings. We'll see. So put it in the order. They had to order directly from D'Addario, which was nice of them to do that. They gave me a little discount on shipping, and they also refunded the difference of one set versus two. So 3 weeks later, D'Addario is having trouble getting these strings too. And I don't know if it's just the gauge that I'm using, but they had a hard time getting them. So it took about 3 weeks for me to get these strings here. So they finally came in the mail. I finally have them. And I'm going to open them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to restring my bass. And more than likely, I've been restringing my bass a certain way for years. And I don't even know if it's the correct way to restring my bass, but it's how I restring my bass. And I'm going to show you guys how I restring my Fender Jazz bass, my baby. So number one, just going to open up the package. It came in the mail. I haven't even opened it yet. So let me get it. Here it is. There was a shipping label, so it's not just a brown paper. It's almost like a dirty magazine came in this. So, but it feels weird. I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's a package of strings. It almost feels like they're loose. So let's see what we got in here. I'm just going to rip this open. Okay. Oh, all right. Well, okay. In Sweetwater fashion, they always give you candy. So, and I do eat the candy, by the way. I love it. So thank you, Sweetwater, for the candy. You get little pamphlets, and here's the strings. They're EXL220-5, and the gauges are 40, 60, 75, 95, and 125. And these are my gauges of strings here. This is the closest I could get to the Ernie Ball. I believe they are the exact same gauge. They're more expensive. They're nickel wound, and we'll see how they go and how I like them. Maybe because they're more expensive, they'll be better. I don't know. It doesn't always work that way, does it? So, but we'll see. And I appreciate you watching. If you like my story or like what you've seen so far, please remember to be kind and like and subscribe. So first, I take my string dampener off. I rarely ever use this thing. I'm not fancy enough to be doing all these fancy techniques that require me to have open strings while I'm doing harmonics and things like that. I can do them a little bit, but it's just not my style. So take that off, and let me just give you a little example of how dead these strings are. So, I mean, they almost sound like flat wounds in a way. So here's the G. It almost sounds like I have the tone down. Here it is down though. Here it is with the tone up. Pretty dead. And I like a tone a lot crisper than that. I'm going to try and do this in one take. And like I said, this is how I change my strings. This is it may not be the right way, but it's how I've been doing it for years. The main things that I do try to keep doing consistently is that I don't take all the strings off at once, because I don't feel that it's good to release all the tension off the neck at the same time. So I change one string at a time. Some people, they cut their strings. I don't do that because I like to save my strings just in case I need them, in case I break one. I have probably way too many old strings. I don't frequently break strings. I do play aggressively, like I've mentioned, but I also don't break a lot of strings. So this is my 2017 Fender Jazz Precision 5-string. Not Precision, Fender Jazz 5-string. This was my dream bass. It took me many, many years to get this bass. So the strings that are on this bass right now are the Ernie Ball Super Slinky. And I have no preference of whether I do the B string first or the, sorry, I do have my volume up so you can hear me changing. So this bass and most of the Fenders are special because they have these holes that go through the body of the guitar. So I don't use those. Some people do. Some people claim, oh wait, no, in this one actually I did use the holes. Okay, I lied. The thing that I don't like about the holes in the body is that they put the strings on a really aggressive angle. I don't know if you can see it, but they're close to being L-shaped. And the thing about why Fender put these holes in the back of the bass is they say that with it going through the body like that, that the strings will have more sustain. I personally have not noticed any more sustain with it through the bridge versus through the body. Sometimes I get in weird moods, like obviously the last time I changed these strings, I thought I had them through the bridge, but obviously I got them through the body of the guitar. So sometimes I get, a little bug where I'm like, oh, well, let me get the most sustain I can out of the bass. And obviously I was in that mood the last time I changed them. I went in intending to change the strings this time with them through the bridge. So now I'm confused. I don't know if I want to do bridge or body. The thing with the other strings do fairly well. They're not on such an aggressive angle. But for the intonation of the B string, I really have a hard time setting the intonation of that. So meaning that it's in key with the open string versus at the 12th fret. being in tune with itself. So I've really had a hard time setting the intonation of the B strings. So the saddle of the bridge is back really far, and that puts the string on a very steep angle. So that's actually why I have the biggest issue with going through the body. So, I mean, you could mix it up. I could have the B string through the bridge and the E string through the bridge, and then do the rest. You know, you can pick and choose, I guess, if you want, but I usually try to do them all the same way. So in this demo, I'm going to start with the G string. So here I go. Oh, one thing I don't have is my wire cutters. So my strings, I cut the excess string off, and I'll go a couple of pegs above the bridge, basically. So I really have no formula. I don't like a lot of winding. I don't like a lot of winding on the peg. So I cut most of the excess off so that I have maybe about 3 or 4 windings around the peg. So this is going to be a little awkward. I've never changed my strings on camera before. Sorry about all the static. Just pull it through. All right. And here's my new set. Nickel wound, and no fancy schmancy. They just put them in a bag, and that's it. The strings are not in individual packages like some companies do. So you find that pesky G string. They have the G and the D wrapped together apparently, so that's a nice little trick they played on me. So these are color coded, but I mean the string sizes are sorry about that. The string sizes are obvious. So I think I'm going to continue, and I'll go through the body of the guitar just to kind of keep it consistent. I don't know why I did it the last time, but I'm doing it this time. Now you can see how much excess string is there. I'm just getting a rat's nest of wires and stuff down here. So there's, I mean, it extends well up above the head of the guitar. So I usually cut it off about right there. So I gotta get my wire cutters. I have a rusty, nasty old pair of wire cutters here. I would recommend doing them with a newer pair of wire cutters. That's all I got right now. Okay, there we go. So now I wrap it around the tuning peg as much as I can, and then I tune it up. There's a little hole in the middle, so I go through that first. And I try to have the wrappings all go to the medial part, or the inner part. So, oops. Try that again. is rather awkward. I've never tuned or restrung my guitar on camera before. All right, so now I start winding it up. I try to get a consistent wind where they all kind of go underneath each other. All right, let me make sure I'm on the right spot on the saddle of the bridge. Yeah, that's a good place. So I don't bother tuning it up, getting it perfectly in tune initially, because the strings are going to stretch, and I'm also going to be, detuning the other strings, which will change the tune. So I just kind of get them close to the tune by ear, and then I'll finalize it later once I finish changing all the strings. Here we go. I'm going to do the D string now. I don't know what it is about Fender tuning pegs, but the D string on this bass has more winding to it. Like it's different than the other ones. Like I have to, when I'm tuning the bass, I have to wind the tuning peg more than the other strings for some reason. I don't know why it is that way on the D string. It's only the D string. I don't know why. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up and get it through the body. It's a bit awkward. That's the D. And here's the new D. Through the body. Can't see what I'm doing. So I like to pull the string up and through, and then pull it up. So the D string, I don't really trim that much because, as you can see, it's only a little above the head. So you really got to be careful. You don't want to trim the string too short, because then you'll be in trouble. I've seen that happen before, and people asking questions. How can I fix this? Well, you got to get new string. Some manufacturers do sell separate strings. I know D'Addario does. So into the hole, and then wrap. All right, so I get it started, and then just start winding it. And I try to be careful. You don't want, like a lot of times the string won't bend, and it'll be sticking over the peg, and you risk it popping off. And like I also mentioned, I try to keep my windings below each other. I think the D string's the only one that I don't trim. All right, it's getting there. And that's the D. Okay. Now for the A string. Sorry about all that racket. I should just speed through all this because this is boring. It's boring me. But I give you a good idea of how long it takes, especially if you're doing it on a video camera. Through the body, discard. Now I gotta find where I dropped my strings. I did not drop them. All right, so this big fat one is the B string, so you don't have to really figure that one out. That's a 125 gauge, not the biggest. Oh, they do give you a guide in case you forget. I think it's on the bag. Yeah. So the A string is red. There you go, red. Because sometimes the gauges are a little hard to figure out. Sorry. That's Canadian for sorry. Oof, I am having a rough time here. Okay, here is A string through the body. Now you can see this one, I don't need all that length. If I leave it that long, then it's gonna have too much wrapping and it'll overlap each other. The only thing with me is I don't like the string overlapping, and that's only because I like it to stay in tune, and if you have it overlapping each other, it takes longer to stretch the strings out. I mean, it will stay in tune, but it just takes a little bit longer to stretch out. So I get my high quality wire cutters, and I'll cut it like right about even with the head, the end of the head. There we go. High quality rusty wire cutters. And wrap it up. It's hard to do this. I keep grabbing the wrong pegs. They do sound much more crisp. Dead. Not. All right, now the E string. Now the E string and the B string is where you start to get the extreme bend, almost an L-shaped bend through the body. It's fine, but it just makes me a little nervous sometimes. You can see there's a lot more string that goes through the bass that way, and it's a pretty extreme bend there. I mean, once you put it through there, there's no turning back. So if you don't like it, too bad. So gee, which is the B and which is the E? I don't know. The package says the gold is the E and the purple is the B. So I'm going to pay attention to the package. Here we go, through the body with a big bend. Once you bend it, there's no turning back. So E string, I'll go up to the in between the D and the A peg. I'll cut it, I'll trim it between there. Because the thicker the string, the more you'll have wrapped around that tuning peg. And here we go. Now you have to press the string down a little bit harder to make sure that it's under the top of the peg. There's like a little flare at the top of the peg that keeps the string from popping off. So you want to make sure you're below that. All right, here we go. Starting to get that extreme bend in there. Oh, that's a beautiful sounding string. It's so crisp. Love it. All right, now it's time to get that big fat B off. And I'll show you how extreme of a bend it is going through there. I mean, that's why it makes me a little bit nervous. But they claim you get more sustain. I've seen people restring their basses. Well, not people, but I saw one person restring their bass and had all of the tuning pegs, the little fan things, all in the same position. Very rare. Now, you can hear, I mean, it's like it grinds going through. The B string, especially if it's like a 130 or 132 gauge, it sounds like you're sanding or filing the bridge. So it's kind of nerve-wracking at times. So look at that. Sorry about that. Look at how extreme of a bend that is. And that's a lot of string going through the body. So I don't know if that's what creates the sustain, having that much string going through, but I don't know. I have not noticed a difference. That's just me. Some of you sensitive bass players may notice a difference. I don't know. So here's the final string. Oops. Okay, so pulling it through this hole is like, it's always like just screech, just going through. So it always makes me a little nervous. I'll try not to cry while I'm doing it. Ooh. Crazy. All right, so this B, I got a lot to play with here, so I'm gonna cut it. I always kind of cut it too long, typically. And then I have like a lot of windings. The thing about these big fat strings, and I know I mentioned this already, is that the bigger they are, the more you have winding around. Ooh, that's a hard one to cut. All right, final string. Now this one, I just push it down and then I use the tuning peg to wrap it, because it's such an extreme bend. All right, well, I've got them all wrapped up. I'm going to end this right now, and then I will saddle up and tune the guitar, and I'll show you how I stretch the strings. Thanks for sticking around, and I appreciate you. Please be kind, like, and subscribe. Tuning the bass. Now comes the part where I tune my bass. My 8, now I have many tuners. I've got a tuner that I use from N-Track, which is pretty good. It's a good standalone tuner. I prefer, which is, oh my gosh, what's the name of that app? It's the Apple, it's not the voice recorder. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the app, but it's got a tuner in it. And hold on. I got to show you it. Got it under tools. Music memos, that's it. It has a tuner. Right there, see? It has a tuner. And believe it or not, it's very good. It's very accurate. But another thing, Paul from Four Pockets, you know, he's such a generous guy, he cares about his customers. He, from my suggestion, added, well, I mean, there was a tuner in there, but it wasn't made for guitars or anything like that, because the harmonics are very unstable with the guitar. He meant for this tuner to be more for like a sine wave, where it's a very stable sound, very predictable sound. So the thing that I was after, because it's a AUV3 app, was, you know, to be able to have this tuner sitting inside of AUM, because AUM does not have a tuner. Uh, and at first he was like, no, I don't think I can do it. And then lo and behold, probably about a week later, an update came out and the tuner is spot on. And it's AUV3. It's the only AUV3 tuner out there right now. So I would snatch that up. It's AnalyserFX is the name of the app. And then you got to go into the presets, and it's the tuner preset. So that was really awesome. So let's see how badly out of tune my guitar is here. Now, when I initially tune my bass after changing the strings, I don't go for perfection. I go for closeness. A lot of times I'll tune a little above the note, and I stretch the strings. And you got to be really careful when you stretch. My technique is my technique. Everybody probably stretches their strings a different way. The way I do it is kind of risky. I grab the string kind of in the middle by the neck, and I just kind of give it a twist. It's as if I'm gonna snap it, but I give it a up and down twist. And I do that with all the strings. D string, A string. I'd be really bummed out if I busted a string right now during this demo, because that would really emphasize how dangerous it is to stretch your strings. So, and then, E string, good stretch. B string, same thing. And you'll hear how badly. So I'm going to have to lean to be able to see what I'm doing here, but I'm going to get the G string close here. And you can watch on Paul's AnalyserFX. Now that's nearly perfect. Now I'm going to give it a good stretch and show you how much it changes. You see how flat it is now. Now you just got to do this a couple times. You see now it's gone down, but not a lot. Now, with a string in that state, you can play and practice, and a good session will get the strings good and stretched out. So I wouldn't sweat doing the bending too much, okay? Because I don't want you to bust your strings using my technique, okay? Don't blame me. This is just how I do it. May not be the right way, but it's how I've been doing it for decades. So here I go with a D. Let me show you. Flat. Now it's okay to go a little above because you're going to bend it. Now it's actually a little sharp, so this one's been bent, stretched pretty good. Okay. Now the A. A is actually almost spot on. Give it a good stretch. Flat. Paul's tuner is very good. Have I said that already? If you don't have it, I recommend getting it. It's the only AUV3 tuner out there. Get it. Sounds good. E T, E T, E T, E, E T, E string now. Ooh, that's way off. I gotta drop D there. Give it a good bend. The thicker strings take a lot more to stretch. So I recommend after a good practice session, after you've changed your strings, to check the tuning. Check the tuning frequently to make sure you're there, because the strings will stretch. Now with the B turn. Give it a good stretch. It's just about there. Okay, and that's it. I appreciate you guys sticking with me and watching me boringly restring and tune my guitar. I thought I'd just do this because I've never done a video like this before. And like I said, I really appreciate you guys sticking around. So if you like what you see, be kind, like, and subscribe.